Alright guys, tonight we're going with plan B because I am so tired. This is Chaplain April and it's day 8. We only have one page of notes. So let's go over this. I have this propped up on some pillows. I am that tired. I just can't even. We had a long day, so it's like 7:30. I'm just now getting back. So day 8 was about who am I, and well, the whole thing's been about who am I, but listening to God was a big theme. So every morning we do this breathing thing where we do 5 minutes of silence and with breathing and just kind of listening to God and all of that. So entering into stillness, and so that's supposed to help us enter into stillness, be grounded in unconditional love. And then so the professor talks a lot about this whole thing, and he was saying that we have to see it as our lives are no longer our own or for our own sake. John Wesley had said, the whole world is my parish, which is a famous quote. And then Ellen Burks, who wrote the book that we were going over today, has been meditating for a long time. So we went into experiencing selflessness. So someone did their report on the book. So it's been a part of her Christian life for years and years. It helps her connect with God. It can be viewed, meditation can be viewed as a type of prayer. So we went over Psalms 46:10, be still and know that I am God. We can participate fully in life. It can be our way of being more alive when we open ourselves to God. So we need to understand first, what is the self? It is not a thing, but a coming together of many aspects, and is coming together moment by moment. Where is our being? Where do we stop and start? We are more than a label. Through meditation, we have a shift in perspective. We are not our thoughts and feelings. So she talked about it's time to take back from thinking, take a break from thinking. So that's what meditation is. You're supposed to not think on things, and when the thoughts come, you just kind of push them away and just go back to silence. Acknowledge the thought, but let it go. It's all in the flow of being. It's all a part of my true self. Our heart becomes open to receiving one another. And then Tillich, which is one of the articles we read, gives a sense of separation. No activity called awareing. So there's no activity called awareing, but we're supposed to be aware. So, awareness is big. We don't do awareness, we are aware. And then something about non-separation, being heartful rather than mindful. And then there was this term that came up, heuristic, HEURISTIC, which is a method of discovery. Our boundaries come at a cost. And there's the song, Just As I Am, which we all know. So God takes us just as we are. Then we talked about I guess he's a philosopher, but he's a theologian also. His name is Karl Rahner. So he has this inclusivistic theology that he put forth. So there's a pluralistic theology, which most of us in the class would not attain to at all. That means that's that whole saying that all religions lead to the same place. We're all praying to the same God. No, most of us would say absolutely not. So, this theologian, I think he was a Jesuit Catholic. I hadn't read him before, but some of the other classmates had read him. And so there's this, and I looked it up. There's this thing about inclusivity. Let me see if I can pull it up here, because I had it earlier, and then I restarted my computer with some updates, and now took me out of everything that I was on. Let's see if I can get back in there. It should take me back to what I was in. Oops. Okay, let's see. So I was already, okay, here we go. Well, now it's wanting me to log in. I was already logged in. I'm sipping on coffee because I am so tired. I could lay down and go right to sleep. Let me see here. It'll take me back to where I was. Yes. Okay. So I looked up Karl Rahner. He lived from 1904 to 1984. He was a highly influential German Jesuit theologian and philosopher. He is considered one of the most important Catholic theologians of the 20th century. His work was made significant contributions to various areas of theology, including Christology, ecclesiology, anthropology, and the relationship between faith and culture. So some key aspects of his theology. So transcendental Thomism. Rahner sought to integrate the thought of Thomas Aquinas with modern existential and transcendental philosophy. He emphasized the importance of human experience and understanding the encounter of God. So I wasn't really looking that part up, but this notion of anonymous Christianity, which was very interesting. It's the idea that suggests that individuals who live according to the values of love and truth, even if they are not explicit followers of Christianity, can be united with Christ and participate in God's grace. I don't know, that's pretty dangerous. This is a dangerous way to go here. So sorry if you hear this window unit air conditioner, because it never shuts off. The first day I was here, I was in the other room, because there's one in there too, and I was kind of waiting for it to shut off once it got to a certain temperature, but it doesn't. It just goes. So this one I actually had to turn off last night so I could get a break from listening to this noise. Okay, so grace and freedom. Rahner explored the dynamic relationship between God's grace and human freedom. He emphasized the primacy of God's grace, which freely offers the possibility of salvation to all, while affirming the importance of human response in cooperation with God's grace. And then theology of the Trinity. Rahner placed a strong emphasis on the doctrine of the Trinity. He viewed it as the central mystery of Christian faith and explored the implications of the Trinity for human understanding and experience of God. But I've also heard other people say that they don't like the notion of the Trinity, but the notion of a triune God. So I'm not really sure where they were going with that one. So but let's go down here, because I said, well, what's the view of inclusivity? It's deeply rooted in his understanding of God's universal salvific will and the expansive reach of God's grace. Rahner believed in the inclusivity of God's love, which extends to all people regardless of their religious affiliation or explicit knowledge of Christian doctrine. Here are some key aspects. So the anonymous Christianity was part of it, which we went over. Universal salvation. He believed God's universal salvific will, meaning that God desires the salvation of all people, which yes, he does. He emphasized the all-encompassing nature of God's love and grace, which extends to every individual, irrespective of their background, religious tradition, or cultural text. This understanding of universal salvation reflects Rahner's inclusive perspective on the scope of God's redemptive work. Okay, and then the mediation of grace. He emphasized the concept of anonymous grace, which suggests that God's grace is not limited to explicit religious contexts. He believed that God's grace can be mediated through various means, including the experiences of love, beauty, truth, and goodness encountered in diverse cultures and religious traditions. Rahner saw these as avenues through which individuals can encounter God's saving presence. And then dialogue with the other religions. He encouraged interreligious dialogue and engagement with people of all different faith traditions. He believed that dialogue promotes mutual understanding, respect, and the recognition of shared human values and experiences. He viewed dialogue as an opportunity to deepen one's understanding of God's presence and cultivate a spirit of inclusivity in the midst of religious diversity. So the whole thing with his inclusivity, from what I was talking to other my classmates about, is that, so yes, Christianity is exclusive, right? So this is an inclusivity that is still exclusive, but can extend to other religions. Because let's say someone has grown up their entire life, in some other faith. Let's not name one because that might be very controversial. But just some other faith, they've never heard the name of Jesus Christ, right? So they could still know God because they might feel religious, and then they've been trained in whatever faith system they're in, and they could still know God, the same God that we are praying to, because they may not know. It's hard to explain, but it's all about your heart. So God looks at the heart. So if God looks at your heart and knows that you love him, the only problem with this whole thing is that the Bible does say in the New Testament that you must believe in Jesus Christ. So what about those people that have never heard of him? Well, we know that he appears to people. We know that he can appear to anyone, and that's been happening at a very astonishing rate right now with some of the other faiths reporting that he can appear to someone the moment they die. I mean, they're going to have an opportunity no matter what. So I don't know. I've never read this theologian, and I think it's a little dangerous to be. I know what he's saying, I think, but I don't know if he stops where I stop in my head with it, or if he keeps going. Sounds to me like he keeps going. Like, now we have universal salvation. I don't know, that's a little much. And then anonymous grace, not sure. Not sure, but so there are people that are universalists. They believe that everybody's going to the same, everything, all religions are going the same place, and it's the same God, and blah blah blah. Well, no, we don't. Devout Christians don't believe that, and we know that it's not the same God. A couple of the religions do believe in the same God, but not every religion believes in the same God. So no. So I don't know how there could be anonymous grace, not limited to explicit religious context. And so maybe you're splitting hairs on that, but God has grace for us in a lot of ways that we don't know about, so I would agree with that. But I mean, he keeps the earth going, you know, he keeps the air that we breathe. He's, you know, he does all these things for us, you know, for the world itself. I mean, he could do a lot of things. He could turn the earth's axis, you know, to where we would either freeze or we would, you know, he does a lot of things already for us before we even get saved, that we don't even know all the things that he does for us. So I don't know if I'd call that anonymous grace, but anyway, I need to read about this more. Not sure when I'll do that, but anyway. So then I assume the reason we were reading about all this is because today we were going to something called the Zen Center, and it's at a Methodist church. So for those of you that don't know, the Methodist denomination is in this huge split right now. A lot of churches are, what do they call it? Disaffiliating. So the church as a whole is taking a stance about certain things that have not been traditionally embraced. And so that is making a lot of the churches have to decide. So that it's a big thing right now. So I think that's part of why we read this, about this, you know, inclusivity here. And we were going to the Zen Center. So our professor leads the Zen Center. And because he was a Jesuit priest, and that was back in Japan, he's from the Philippines, but he had gone to Japan, this whole thing. So because of that, he was introduced a lot to the Eastern stuff. So he's into that. So he went through this whole thing that there's something that the Vatican says, whatever is true and good and holy, that we should embrace that. So that's when he decided to go ahead and embrace a lot of the Buddhist, you know, teachings. Which I've heard a lot of other Catholics doing that too. But so he was trying to break it to us lightly that it's okay for us to do this, because I'm sure he's had a lot of pushback with a lot of the other classes that he's taught with doing this sort of thing, because most Christians would be like, no, you know, I don't believe in Buddha, and we're not doing Buddhism, and, you know, blah, blah, blah. So he came up with this statue called the Maria Canon. And so he had this whole story that because people were expected to be Buddhist or whatever it was in the country, then they had this Christian, so he called them the secret Christians. So they had this statue of this lady, and it's Maria Canon, but she has a necklace on with a cross, and so they made that their Mary. So they looked at that as their Mary, and because she was wearing a cross, they were okay with that. And so whenever the officials would come to their houses to make sure that they had some kind of something in their house to show that they were Buddhist, they would have this Maria Canon there, Kannon, and that was enough for them. So they were kind of like saying that they were Buddhist. I mean, they were up against a wall, so this is kind of how they got around it. So that's what he had at the Zen Center. He had this statue of this Maria Canon. He kept telling us, because he knows this is a sticky thing, like, we're not bowing to Buddha. I had told one of my classmates that I've kind of gotten close to, she's a Presbyterian pastor. I said, I don't know about you, but I can't bow to Buddha. I'm just not doing it. And she said, well, I'm going to tell the professor that I'm not doing it. So I was like, okay, I'm not the only one. So when I had texted my husband, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm not sure what we're doing, but there's been some talk about what if we have to bow to Buddha. And he goes, oh, just, you know, fake it and just act like it, LOL. And I texted him back and I said, I just can't do that. I can't do that. So I had decided that I would just take a stand and just not bow. But that didn't come up. So he had this, I'm sure he's gone through this before. These are very devout Christians with specific covenants and beliefs, and you know, all these conservative type people coming through the program, and I'm sure this has come up many times because he's talked a lot about it. So he had this statue of Maria Cannon that we were kind of bowing to. So he made it sound like, well, this is, you know, just, we're treating this statue as if it is Mary, the Virgin Mary. So then we were all okay with it, like, okay. So then we did this thing that he does in class every morning is 5 minutes long. So we do this silent thing for 5 minutes. And so today at the Zen Center, we did 10 minutes for our first session. Then we did Zen walking, which is kind of like Zen in motion kind of thing is what he called it. So you walk really slowly, you breathe in with one step, you breathe out with the other. So we did the Zen walking for a while. Then we did another session of silence. That was 20 minutes, and I'm thinking, I thought 5 minutes was a lot, and when he said we're doing 20, I just was like, oh my God, I don't know if I can last this long. Then we did Zen walking again. Then we did a tea ceremony. So that was kind of cool. So he and another classmate who is a Methodist pastor who is already involved in this Zen Center, they served us the tea, and, you know, we had to bow to the, you know, just not bowing, but just kind of like in the Asian way.
This is ginger tea, by the way, decaffeinated. I'll bow first, or put your palms together, and lift your cup.
I actually really like this because I am not fond of the American handshake. I do not like the American handshake. I don't like it. I don't want to shake hands with people. I don't like shaking hands with people. I just think germs, and, you know, I don't care if it's, you know, people are all about, well, it's got to be firm and this and that. I don't really care. I don't care what the handshake is. I grew up where you kiss people on the cheek. And so I love this Asian thing where you are greeting each other soul to soul. I actually really like that. So you're not really bowing to the person, but you are acknowledging them and you are greeting their soul. I much prefer that to the American handshake. I mean, I don't know where this came from, why we're doing this stupid handshake. I was actually happy when COVID happened and I didn't have to shake hands with people anymore. It's like, why are we shaking hands? And these guys will just like grab your hand and you're just like, oh my God, no, stop. And really, like, it's not proper. I can't think of the term right now, but it's really not proper for a man to extend his hand to a woman. It's the lady's decision whether she wants to shake hands with you or not. So you really are not supposed to extend your hand to a woman in etiquette. If you read the etiquette books, that's what it says. But nobody knows this. So you are supposed to wait for the lady to extend her hand to you. And back in the day, women used to wear gloves, so it wasn't so much of a big deal. They would wear gloves. That's one of the reasons they wore gloves. But now nobody knows any of this, and nobody cares, and they just want to shake your hand and pump it like it's, you know, a water pump or something. I'm just like, stop. So I do love this. This is good. So we did that a lot today. So we're no longer living for ourselves, blah, blah, blah. You can tell how much I'm into the Zen. I liked this tea ceremony, so he told this whole story about how the samurais used to, kind of make fires at night and have tea with one another and serve each other this tea because they weren't sure who was going to be alive at the end of the wars and stuff. And so they would just have this tea. And so they served us the tea, and then they came back around and got our cups. And so the cups don't have a handle, and you're just kind of like, and it was this ginger tea. And so you're opening yourself to God, letting go of concepts and beliefs, emptying. So then they gave the scripture, Philippians 2:7, Christ emptying himself. Also, apophatic contemplation. You can look that up, because do I remember what it means? No. Oh, here we go. It tells me right here. You can tell I'm so tired. I'm like, what? Let go of what God is not. So there you have it. Page 76, the way out of suffering, and fivefold path. Page 77. Well, I don't have the book here. I'm not so much a proponent of this book. It's called Selfless Love, I think.
Abandon that separation between observer and observer of observed, describer and the described, and simply participate. So we are fully in the flow of life. And that's what this experience of stopping and paying attention and being aware can help us understand.
True selfless love does not tire you out. So I'm like, okay, so as a chaplain, there's this big thing called compassion fatigue. So Ellen Burks believes that we should not have compassion fatigue, because if we become fatigued in our souls, then we are not truly embracing this whole that she has put forth here. So now we can't say we have compassion fatigue. Well, it's a real thing. So we're not meditating enough and getting, into our true self, and so things should not fatigue us. I don't know, guys. I just can't with some of this. So the one thing in the book, and this I talked about in our group, I wasn't sure if I wanted to, a lot of us weren't sure we wanted to talk about this in front of the professor, but one of the big things in the book, this big theme in the book, is that she goes through this whole thing to get down to this, thesis of we are love. And I'm going, no, we are not love. So this is how I put it forth to my fellow classmates in our group. I said, I just can't embrace that thought. I'm sorry. So our papers were all about, we had to write about this, and some of the people were like, oh, I love that concept, and yes, we are love, and I'm going, no, no. God is love. We know that. God is love. So if I say that I am love also, then I am a God with a lowercase g. And that is New Age. So this is the correlation that New Age makes. So because we have God, so Christians, it's like, no, we have God in us, we have love in us, and the love that we have and that flows out of us is God's love, yes. But I cannot go as far as to say that I am love, because I am not God. So in my paper, I had to say to the professor that I'm not sure that I believe this, and then I kind of, went into something else, because I didn't want to be totally offensive about it, but no, I'm sorry. I'm not going to go there. That's a dangerous place to go. And to me, that's New Age. So New Age will tell you that we are little gods. And, you know, God is, anything is a god. You know, this thing on the wall over here is a god, and we are small gods and all that. So if I start saying that I am love, that I am attributes of God, no, I'm not doing that. I have his attributes is the proper way for a Christian. So I apologize if anybody from the class or any of the professors see this, but I'm not going to apologize for my conviction. So that is a conviction that I have, and I'm not going to go against that. So that's where I stand with that. And then after that, we all went to dinner to a Mexican restaurant, which I was just like not even really hungry. Oh, we had lunch together. We had this lunch together. I'll show it in the video. In the refectory is what it's called.
Oh, you mentioned that this morning. Yes, we're having
that in and I can scoot down some.
They brought this lunch in and blah, blah, blah. So we all had lunch together with some of the faculty that we've never met. One of the other classes, I think, that we all had lunch. So then we had decided to go to dinner as a class. So then we went to dinner after the whole Zen thing. And so it was long, so I didn't get back here till 7:30, so I am really tired, and then I have a little bit of homework, and then I'm checking out. So that's day 8 for you. I still talked for 30 minutes, so I was trying to make it shorter, and then I had already changed and everything, so I'm like, whatever, I'm just gonna do this. But that's day 8, so we will see you tomorrow for day 9. Talk to you later.